Well, welcome to Merit TV Canada's Election Watch 2025. We are on the road to the election day coming up April 28th. Today, it's Tuesday. Hope you guys are doing well wherever we find you. I want to chat through a number of things today as we are trying our best to inform you of the different scenarios and different things that are happening within each party, within our country, also the geopolitics that's going on with Canada-U.S. relations. That has been obviously possibly the number one story through this whole election. Although there's a couple other threads that need to be highlighted. That how our economy is doing. Where are we economically as a country? Are we secure? Are we in a good position where we can generate and create wealth? Well, the last 10, 12 years actually show otherwise. And these are issues that need to be addressed going forward. And first off, I want to start off, I believe, as you're maybe you're not aware, but this week, Wednesday, Thursday, leadership debates are happening. Wednesday is the French leadership debate. Thursday is the English. This is going to have a massive influence on public opinion. I do believe that this will sway the polls. We've been watching the polls closely, whether you're a believer in them or not. And please don't be a believer in the polls only when it suits your party. We want to look at the average, what's happening across the polls. They're small sample sizes. And we have seen, obviously, the Liberals have a massive surge since Justin Trudeau resigned. Conservatives have maintained where they've been at, but they're slightly behind the Liberals. This upcoming election is going to have a big influence. You're going to see Pierre Poilievre, who is a polished speaker. He's one that has been hitting his talking points over and over again. Common sense Canada. We want to make sure that Canada continues to be able to build a place where people can get ahead based on their merit. Hardworking people can afford homes. That kind of talk. He knows what he is saying. They have been working at this for a long time, and they've got their plan of what they're going to go. It's going to be interesting to see how Mark Carney handles the debates, because he's going to be head-to-head with other politicians who are used to going head-to-head with people all the time. And if we are honest about Mark Carney, he comes from an area where he sits around boardrooms, and he's more so used to being able to give commands and orders and not being challenged. We've seen a little bit of a short fuse when he's dealing with different reporters, or avoidance of questions, or snapping back at people for having questions, just a question, why do you think this, or what are you going to do about that? So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with this. As we move forward, this is going to have a significant thing. It's funny, today I actually saw Yves Blanchette, the leader of the Bloc Québécois, was requesting, as of maybe an hour ago, requesting that the French debate be moved, possibly because it falls on the same evening as the Montreal Canadiens' final hockey game of the season. So, but his reasoning wasn't because he loves hockey so much, it's because there's so much to be chatted about that Quebecers and people who follow Montreal Canadiens need to be able to pay attention to the debates to address some of these issues. I really hope some of these major issues can be settled at the debate. We're still waiting for a platform to come from the NDP, as well from the Liberals. We don't know what their policy platform is. Are they going to be the same Liberal Party that's been around for the last 10 years with the same policies, the same direction they're going, or are they going to be different? One of the biggest themes that the Liberal Party has been uniting around, and they've been trying to unite Canadians around, is the threat from the South. Tariffs, President Donald Trump, the fact that they want to go and take over Canada. I want you to watch this clip for a quick second.
The relationship we had with the Americans, these guys weren't wrong. They want us to be the 51st state. They want to break us. They want to break us so they can own us. They want our resources. They want our water. They want our land. They want our country. And what do we say? You don't have to die. You don't have to die. Never. Never.
This type of idea has been driving Mark Carney and the Liberals and unifying a lot of Canadians. We've been seeing businesses throughout Canada saying, we are Canada, Canada proud, made in Canada, a rejection of any American sentiment. And this is something that has been working, I believe, for the Liberals. But I hope that us as Canadians, we aren't going to be distracted by what's happening south of the border with what President Donald Trump has been stating, with this idea that Canada is going to be a 51st state and our problems are directly a result of what America is doing in these tariffs, because that's not been the issue. The issue has been bad policy. The issue has been bad governance. The issue has been Canadians being okay with a certain way of life for the last 10, 15 years, and that has gotten us to a position where we are vulnerable. These are big issues. You need to ask yourself, do you support what Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney believe in responding to Donald Trump with tariffs in terms of tariff or tariff approach? This resembles what really was a major topic of the 1980 elections in terms of this free trade idea. How are we going to relate with United States? But more importantly, what I want to see is who can lay out a platform, who can lay out policy that's not slogans, that's not just this unifying Canada, but an actual plan that changes us and the course that we have been on. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result. I want to see a different result. I want to see a strong Canada. I want to see a place where people are willing to invest their money, where we draw the best talent here. We attract talent to come work in AI, in technology, in our oil and gas sectors, in agriculture, in all these areas that actually build up a place where Canada can afford to invest in its education, in its healthcare, in all the areas that we need to build up. Lots of different things. I'm talking a bit more conceptually today, but we're going to dive in much deeper with this topic with a friend of mine named Kirk Lubimov, who's going to be joining us in just a second. But stay tuned, and thanks for sticking around with us. We will be back right after this break. Well, welcome back, everyone, to Merit TV Canada's Election Watch 2025. I'm joined by a friend of mine, Kirk Lubimov, a political and economic analyst. I really appreciate all of his thoughts. If you guys do not follow him on X, you can hear all of his thoughts there. He's got great insights to what's happening in our country. Kirk, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend?
Good. How are you, bud?
Yeah, we're doing good. We're just running as we move towards April 28th, Election Day. I know this upcoming weekend is Easter weekend for a lot of Christians throughout the country, but it's also advanced polling is going to be taking place Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so people can get out and vote early if they want to. Kirk, I want to start off by jumping into something that I'm still using the word tweet because it's always going to be Twitter to me, something that you tweeted today about Mark Carney and some specific things he's been saying at his rallies, specifically around the idea of catalyzing industry. Can you maybe talk a little bit about the importance of this, but also is that slightly misleading? And just explain to our audience what that was.
Yeah. So, the big, I guess, bet on Mark Carney from the Liberal side and how they're trying to push him is this brilliant economist, brilliant business advisor, even though he hasn't really been an economist for ages. And his business advising has essentially been 100% focused on transforming the global financial flow into environmental focused industries, right? How the environmental industries can play a role within legacy industries. So, and he hasn't really announced anything big except they have a huge plan for an industrial carbon tax, which everyone knows. Um, but he keeps mentioning this, and I think it was today or yesterday that he brought it up, and how he can help rebuild Canada. The issues with Canada, besides the red tape and removing red tape, no one is lining up to invest here. Right, we don't have anyone lining up with cash to build up big tech sector stuff. Nobody's coming here to, build semiconductors or anything, right? So the question is, how do we get companies motivated to come here? And of course, a lot of it comes through how the government allocates capital, R&D, and so forth.
Right.
So one of the things that he mentioned was that he's going to use. So he pointed out correctly that Justin Trudeau's government bloat spending has completely outpaced the economic growth. In other words, the Justin Trudeau Liberal government has spent money recklessly without it equaling to an ROI in the economy.
Yeah.
So Mark Carney is an awful communicator, right? That's his worst aspect. So what he wants to do is utilize that inefficient capital that was being spent on achieving who knows what in the public sector except more people, and use it as a leverage to borrow and to co-invest with companies and give a grant and R&D into industry-specific activities that will bring capital into Canada.
Hmm.
So in the business world, we essentially call it a leverage, right? When you take money, you borrow and you invest, it's called a leverage. So he wants to essentially execute the same idea for the economic buildup of Canada, which is the correct route. I think the Conservatives need to do that too.
Okay.
We're so far behind that we need this, and the government already does in many areas, in many industries. We have a quantum strategy, we have a X, Y, and Z strategy for a whole bunch of industries, including the military. So we need to see what the actual plan is, right? Because we know that his economic buildup will be slanted towards environmental sector participating within our industrial sector.
So the general idea is good in terms of catalyzing industry. You want to have economic growth in our country, which we have not had. As you mentioned, there is no new money invested in Canada. We're not attracting capital to grow, as you stated. So the idea of what Carney's proposing is good, but is there any skepticism you have in terms of well, actually, you made it clear. We don't know the plan yet because we're still waiting for his platform to come out. My question for you would be, would Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives have a similar approach in terms of wanting to catalyze certain industry, and how would that differ from what Carney's approach would be?
Yeah, their approach so far has been let's create a obviously economic zone, where we can transport, put in pipelines, power, everything essentially moving through it, and remove red tape, which everyone is advocating for, except Carney's Bill 669, which is to no pipelines
That's
bill,
right.
which somehow, for some reason, he came out against it when he first came for building more pipelines. Then he came out against removing Bill 669, and in the French show a couple days ago, he said, maybe pipelines are not really necessary. The
Yeah.
problem is the conservatives are afraid to announce spending because it's viewed as not conservative, right? But the issue is we do need to invest into smart things that have significant ROI. And we at this point in the country that we need to be a participant uh, and be there for businesses and in partnership with businesses. I don't mean in partnership as in co-own any part of the infrastructure of business, but I mean participating into into economic generation with businesses. We need to generate that. The U.S. does it. Everyone else does it essentially to a certain degree, and we need to have a certain plan to do that. Now, the problem the conservatives are facing here is if Carney can communicate this properly, which he doesn't seem to be able to, which is a huge bonus for the conservatives, but if he can communicate it and leverage it out somehow within the media, the conservatives will be on the back foot because they don't really have a plan here to address this. So even if Mark Carney's plan is a bad plan, it's still a plan, and it's something for the voters to vote for, because most voters will, if they choose between a no plan and to vote for a bad plan, most people will just see it as a plan rather than a no plan. So they'll still vote for a plan. And the conservatives need to give them an option rather than accept just saying we're going to remove some red tape.
That's an interesting take, Kirk. I haven't really heard that one before, because one of the biggest, I think it's the biggest issue in the election, and maybe for some people might not be, but we have been stagnant at the very best over the last 10 years as growth for Canada. Whether people like to say it or not, economic growth, meaning how much can your paycheck buy you, our per capita GDP, is extremely important to each individual, because that is the wealth factor for each person. It helps our education, helps hospitals, helps families grow, doing things with your kids. All that's very important, and Canada has not been progressing. And you're saying that Carney actually is putting a bit forth of a plan, but the Conservatives haven't really addressed that, maybe except for the odd things of saying we're going to get energy out and grow, those type of things. Question for you, my next question for you, you stated that under Justin Trudeau's government, that spending has outpaced economic growth over the last 10 years, essentially. That was Carney's words that you were quoting.
Yeah, government spending into
Government.
government operations. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for clarity. Now, a big part of this election has been the unifying Canada against the border, the threat south of the border in Donald Trump and tariffs. Do you think that that is a legitimate threat to Canada, or is it a distraction from maybe Canadians or us being our own problem for the last 10 years? What do you think on that?
Yeah, I think we have a combination of everything here. I think the Donald Trump's tariffs have really helped expose deep issues that we have within our country, our trade, and in our economic activity in general. The past 10 years have nothing to do with Donald Trump, right? It was Justin Trudeau liberal government that has done such colossal damage to the country economically, right? We essentially have a lost decade, which is huge, right? Um, what Trump has exposed is a lot of the aspects that we really need to work on. Our interprovincial trade is absolutely ludicrous that we have such extreme amount of red tape and not enough cooperation. That in itself equals to about 20-21% in tariffs. The red
Yeah.
tape that we create ourselves between the provinces. So if we want quick win, quick buck, this is where our low-hanging fruit is to generate an internal economy. Is start to get rid of the internal red tape. Right. The other aspect of it is how much of our industries are dependent on certain countries, which is a lot of it is to U.S. Right. So we have so much of our eggs into one basket. But Donald Trump will come and go, but the long-term outlook is how can we expand our power and dominance, and including economic power within the world? And the answer to that is really we need to participate in more economies in the world and create more trade, more cooperation. Germany right now they're looking at again. They have some deals issues with Qatar for LNG. They're looking at getting Russian gas again, just because the the costs and everything is just so astronomical that they can't even participate into market economies anymore in certain sectors. So a lot of those European countries are begging for energy. The industrial world, uh, a lot of the second and third world countries that are trying to industrialize need energy. And we have a lot of also minerals and everything else. The U.S. has announced over $500 billion just in semiconductors and
That's right.
AI chip development, right? And a lot of the critical minerals can come from Canada. China, in their tariff response, uh, has essentially shut down the shipment of about 7 to 9 critical minerals that the U.S. will need, other countries will need. And the U.S. gets a lot of their precious metals and minerals from Canada. We can be an extreme powerhouse in this supply chain, but the biggest um, thing that Canada can do is we can actually do a closed loop supply chain from mining to manufacturing and being all in one within essentially a couple 100-kilometer radius and produce it all in house. This is some of the stuff that government needs to participate in investing and trying to generate going into country.
So, which party has your confidence to actually move us in that direction, if any?
Yeah, yeah. I would like to see something big announced in this election. There has nothing really been significant that will move the needle much yet.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I'm a little disappointed with the conservatives. You had 10 years in power, and the platform that you're coming out is essentially lukewarm.
Hmm.
I want to see big things, ambition, give to future generations something to hope for, give investors to something to drool at. We have a whole bunch of industries that Canada does not participate that we need to participate. We need R&D dollars, and we need the universities and the government and everyone else to say to the world, listen, we're interested in this and we're going to run with this for decades. This should be the
Great.
new home for capital. So I would like to
I
see a little
agree.
bit more from both, but
Yeah.
just the environmental skewing of Mark Carney and the red tape that he's proposing is a little scary.
Well, hopefully we can learn a lot more this week with the debates coming up on Wednesday and Thursday at the French and English debate. That'll be as we were talking just before, and that's going to have a big sway, I think, on public opinion, how they're going to come across. Hopefully they can unveil some new plans. We got to wrap right away, but any predictions from the debates coming up? Any thoughts? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but any thoughts on it coming up?
Yeah, I really hope that Pierre is gonna pull Carney into the deep water and make it uncomfortable for him, because Mark Carney is not a good communicator. He's not used to defending his ideas. He's used to dictating them and sitting in round tables and telling people what things should be done. So I need to see Pierre take him to the deep water, make it uncomfortable for him, make him defend his record and his ideas.
Interesting. I wonder if we'll see some short fuse or some fireworks, but I think all Canadians should be watching. Anyways, Kirk, appreciate you joining me. I know we'll be hearing more from you as we move towards April 28th. Always appreciate it. Thanks for watching, you guys. We'll be back after this. Well, there's definitely a lot to think about, a lot to be aware of as this campaign election evolves. There has not been any major fireworks in the last number of days or even over the weekend. We're still awaiting some platform updates from the Liberals, the NDP. I'm really hoping that this week with the leadership debates, that there will be a lot of that unveiled. What are they going to do? It's going to be interesting to see how these guys, these leaders react against each other, what each party stands for. Interesting, it just kind of broke earlier today as well. There's an open letter from 2 RCMP officers talking about 9 current or former Liberal cabinet members that have been compromised through the CCP, and that's always a concern about Chinese interference within Canada. We know there's a lot of influence throughout Canada. We remember Justin Trudeau's remarks about admiring the basic dictatorship. Does Mark Carney have a similar idea? What are his ties? What's happening with all of the conflict of interest pieces that we need to know as Canadians in regards to Mark Carney's holdings and his connection throughout the world? These are important facts that Canadians need to know. I truly believe and hope that as we continue to move forward, that you as citizens of Canada, that you're willing to use your voice, not only in voting, but also calling your MPs, getting politically active, advocating for what you believe is the best path. Get involved with campaigns. Let's not be passive Canadians that sit back and just wait for a result, but we're actually active in getting the result that you believe. That's the beauty of democracy. We all may have different thoughts and beliefs, but we can come together and let those ideas rub against each other. Let those ideas go back and forth and see which is the best ones that rise to the top. We're going to have a lot of continuous coverage for you guys. A lot of this, as we talk through, will be conceptual. We will be diving into the actual details of this as we have been for the last week. But thank you so much for all of your support as we continue to bring you the election coverage here on Merit TV Canada. We cannot do without your guys' support. Watch us on YouTube. Watch us on all the social medias. Right now, we also have one of our trucks, which is driving across the country, getting stories on the ground. Right now, they're going to be moving towards Toronto and Ottawa. If you see it, capture a picture of it, put it on social media, or go tell them your story, what you're thinking about in terms of voting. So appreciate you guys. This has been Merit TV Canada's Election Watch. We'll see you tomorrow.